Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Now, I just wanted to briefly speak about all this controversy that's happening regarding this new movie that's come out, which portrays our Prophet in a very negative and disrespectful manner. And you've probably also heard about the response in many Muslim countries, even in the West. Now, for example, here in Australia, we've had quite serious protests where people have been arrested, police officers have been injured. And what I wanted to do here is to address the issue from the Qur'an itself, because the Qur'an actually gives specific advice about this issue. When the Prophet ﷺ is insulted, what should be our response? Now, the verses I want to quote are from the 34th chapter of the Qur'an, and verse 43 actually mentions the actual insults that were directed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there are actually a number of verses in the Qur'an that mentions these insults specifically. That's actually quite interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would mention the insult. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually mention the insult? I mean, if something bad was mentioned about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, why would we actually mention it in the Qur'an to teach us? In that these allegations made against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about his character, about his motives, about all these things that he's been attacked about, these will be repeated. And this has been repeated with this movie, with the cartoons, with publications, with the internet, and so on and so on. What's important about all this is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually gives us a response to when this happens. In this surah, a very clear response is given to deliver to those people who are affected by this propaganda, and what we should actually say to them. If somebody comes up to you and says, your Prophet is such and such, and insults him in front of you, what should we do? That's the question. In this verse in front of you, an insult is mentioned. But what I want to actually specifically mention are two words in this verse, which is هذا and رجل. These two words actually are used to mock the Prophet Muhammad. So هذا is a demonstrative pronoun. When you refer to someone with this pronoun, هذا, it's actually very disrespectful if you call somebody هذا, instead of calling him by his name. So you call somebody this. And رجل is indefinite. And when indefinite is used, it's used to belittle and to consider somebody insignificant. So a worthless man. And these are actually the insults mentioned by those who are actually disbelieving in him. And on top of this, he's accused of being a liar, being a magician, trying to mislead people, and so on and so on. Getting to the response, because the response actually to these statements is actually given. And there's actually 5 verses. If we look at them, it's actually quite interesting, because here, if you see the first word, it's qul. 5 times. It's in the pink, which means say. Say in response to the allegations that these people are making against you. So specifically it's being directed to the Prophet Muhammad to say, and by extension to those who follow him. So when the Prophet Muhammad is being attacked, this is our response, is to mention these things. Now the first verse in the response is actually what I want to speak about. It says, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَعِظُكُمْ بِوَاحِدَةٍ. Say, I only advise you one thing. So this is the advice. And this is for anybody searching for the truth of who Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was. Who was he? If you're after the truth, then follow this advice. It says, أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ مَثْنَى وَفُرَادَى. That you stand for Allah. Now this statement, standing for Allah, means to seek after the truth for the sake of God. So sincerely to seek the truth. Not somebody that already has his preconceived ideas and he's just searching for an excuse not to follow him, but to see who he was, get the whole picture. So the first is أن تقوموا لله, to have this intention of being sincere. And it mentions two states, مثنى وفرادى. مثنى means in pairs, and furada means as individuals. Now, what scholars say about this is that this is actually a term used to indicate either seek after the truth as individuals. So you want to do the research, you can do it individually, or to consult somebody about it. So obviously the best person to consult will be a Muslim, and preferably a scholar. And then it gives the next piece of advice after this. So you're sincere, and to consult somebody about it, and to do your own research about that as well, from the correct sources obviously. And then it says ثم تتفكروا, and then after all this, think about it, ponder over it. تتفكروا actually means to deeply ponder over it, because this actually is a matter of the highest of importance. Because after all, if Muhammad ﷺ was a prophet and one didn't follow him, then there will be grave consequences for him and her in the hereafter. And then the Quran makes a statement, مَا بِصَاحِبُكُمْ مِنْ جِنَّةٍ, there is not in your companion any madness, meaning that he's not insane in any way. And this is something that one can clearly actually come to this conclusion when one studies his life. And notice here the word صاحبكم. صاحبكم is a word which means companion. It's a word that means somebody that you actually lived with your whole life. You know him. Now, it's quite interesting actually, because the most documented life of any individual in the history of mankind is the life of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The most documented. If you want to know anything about his life, they're all mentioned. And I could spend so much talking about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his great qualities. But the point is, you need to look this up for yourself. So once somebody comes to the conclusion that he's not insane, then what was he? If he wasn't insane, either he was truthful or he was lying. So one will need to study his life and then come to a conclusion about this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually says, إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا نَذِيرٌ لَكُمْ بَيْنَ يَدَيْ عَذَابٍ شَدِيدٍ. He is only a warner to you before a severe punishment. So this is advice I give to non-Muslims that are watching this. And for Muslims, my advice is for you to tell this to anybody you know who insults the Prophet Muhammad. Try to be the best example in front of this person, because after all, you are one of his followers. So may Allah guide those who are astray, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cause us to follow the guidance of the Qur'an and to follow in the footsteps of our beloved Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.